Hello, my fellow Americans. I would first like to apologize for the long delay on this video. I really wanted to get it out the first or second week of December at the latest, but due to a series of personal events this month and the fact that it's the holiday season, there's been a lot that came up this month and I didn't get around to making the video sooner. So I would like to apologize for that. But that aside, I am here to put out my December video. The January one hopefully will not be near as late into January as this one was. But all that aside, let's talk about today's issues. So, another thing I would like to apologize for, I'm having trouble accessing the email I set up for this. Can't manage to remember what the password is, and resetting it is a giant pain. But not important, so I picked the issues for today, and the issues are going to be based kind of off of what's going on current event-wise. Right now, a big thing in our country is the stimulus relief. Over the course of this pandemic we have going on, thousands upon thousands of Americans have lost their jobs, have suffered with trying to figure out how to pay their rent and bills in general, how to come up with meals for their families, and it's just a giant mess in general. Now, a lot of people think that the government having more power with as much as they tend to mess up, it's a bad thing, but it is the government's duty to look out for its people. The government is responsible for taking care of its people to a certain degree. No, they don't need to 100% take care of people, so they just sit around and don't do anything. But under circumstances like this, people shouldn't be left to suffer because they have no other options. There are people that are months behind on their rent because they lost their jobs, because their job either is non-existent now because their business went under due to lack of business, for lack of better words, or because it just no longer exists for one reason or another. All that said, I'd like to talk about that first and foremost today. This stimulus has been one giant mess. We've been 6 months since the government gave $1,200 to people and expected that to stretch out over the course of all this. I haven't personally done the math, but I read that that comes out to $7.50 a week. Now, I apologize for not doing the math myself and checking it, and if somebody would like to check that and call me out on it for being wrong, I 100% accept that, but doing the math on that was not at the top of my priorities list. And the point isn't the exact number, so much as $1,200 to stretch out across this many months, no matter what that comes out to per week, per day. That's just not enough money for people to get by on. People cannot survive on $1,200. For some locations in this country, that's a single month's rent. And that's absolutely, it's absurd that that's what they were given. And now this one is supposed to be $600. Now, higher amounts were proposed by various people that will not be discussed, because I am not showing favoritism to one side or another. But even so, even the higher amounts that were talked are ridiculous. Congress, the president, these people make money hand over fist. That we, the taxpayers, pay them to do their jobs. They are civil servants. They are there to serve us. And as president, I will serve the American people. I will not just sit back idly by and watch as the American people suffer. Now, hopefully, hopefully by 2024, this pandemic is long taken care of and under control. But my point remains valid, that if any circumstance like this were to come about again, I would not sit on my thumbs and wait to see relief brought to the people who need it. There are Americans suffering right now, struggling to figure out how they're going to make it. And what's going on? We're gonna give them $600, and the American people are supposed to be satisfied with that. Do you know how much Congress makes? Do you know how much the president makes? These people have been getting paid the entire way through this pandemic. Their jobs have never been threatened. Their livelihoods have never been put at risk. But yours, you, the American people, have been put in those circumstances. I've been fortunate enough that through this pandemic, I have been able to work, aside from being out for COVID tests, which, thankfully, I tested negative on. But not the point. I have been lucky enough and fortunate enough that I've been able to work through this. But even people close to me, I've seen some of them that have been laid off, some of them that have lost their jobs, that have wondered through this how they and their families are going to make it. And that's just unacceptable. This is America. We claim to be the greatest country in the world. But at every turn, you can see things that we fail at. We as a nation fail at, and that's hard to hear. Nobody wants to hear that in this country. Nobody wants to hear that America is not the #1 country. And I'm sure there's a lot of you that might turn this video off right now in disgust that I would even say that about my country. That would say, if you don't love this country, get out. You know what? I do love this country. I love America, and I love the American people. And I am disgusted with the way this country treats itself. We need to fix this country. We need to start from the top down and fix the problems. And a lot of the problems, they're not for the people at the top, which is why they don't get fixed. They look at it, why would I fix something that isn't broken? It is broken. It's just not broken for you. I see that. I want to fix that. I want to make America better. I want to instill policies that protect the American people in all regards. Now, some people might say, well, those are socialist policies. There's a lot of socialist policies, and the word socialism gets abused. One side abuses the word socialism, the other side abuses the word fascism. But we're not here to talk about picking sides and abusing terms and stuff. The fact is, there are democratic ways to go about socialism. There are tons of countries around the world that are democratic socialist, that use policies in their country. Here in America ourselves, we have socialist policies that we use. Welfare system, which needs revised, but we'll talk about that another time. Medicare, Medicaid. These are programs that we as taxpayers pay into that go to help everybody. And maybe someday we'll need them and they'll help us. Maybe not. But that's in our own country we have those. And they work. Sometimes. There are revisions needed. We'll talk about that another time, like I said. But we need more policies that protect the average American. We let the average American suffer. We let the working class suffer during this whole pandemic and even before it in certain regards. There has to be policies instilled. Now you're asking, all right, it's good to hear you say that, but what sorts of policies do you mean, Adam? By that, I mean we need to set up programs that when somebody is displaced from their job in situations such as this, there are fail-safes to protect them for a certain period of time. And I'm not talking we give them a week to find a new job. Right now, finding a new job for some people in certain areas in a week would be impossible because a lot of the jobs are gone. They're just not there right now. We need social systems set up that give them the time to get their life straightened out so that they can figure out and get back on their feet and go, all right, I got my head level, I might have lost my job, but I don't have to worry about certain things. The stress of this whole situation on some people has to be overwhelming. To wake up every day and just struggle to figure out how you and your family are going to make it. We need social programs to watch out for those people, to give them a chance to get their head straight and be able to figure out how to get their life back together. We need protections for those people. Among other social programs I think we need to instill, not necessarily a universal health care, but we need health care benefits that watch out for people. There was the whole Obamacare thing, and that punished people when you didn't have health care. You got fined for not having health care. How did that help anybody? If you couldn't afford the health care, how could you afford the fines? That's not the direction we need to take it. If you're going to try and provide medical for people, you need to actually provide medical and not punish them if they choose not to get it. On the same note, a lot of people were always worried if the government were to provide health care, what about my private insurance? We need to do something if we're going to do a healthcare system in this country that offers them a government option, but also gives them the chance to keep their private health cares. You want to keep your private health care at work? All right, go for it. You can keep it. Good. More power to you. But if your work doesn't offer you health care, which a lot of jobs in this country do not offer health care, your job doesn't offer health care, you don't like the health care options at work, you can go through the government. I don't have an exact plan for it, but something will be figured out. I have 4 years to study up on this and research and find what it would cost the country and how we could go about it. And maybe free health care for certain people, but you pay a certain amount for other people. And you're going to say, well, where's the cutoff? Here's a good cutoff. Children. Anybody under the age of 18, free health care. Doesn't matter. If you're a child, you shouldn't have to worry about that. Your parents shouldn't have to worry about that. And unfortunately, some parents don't worry about that, and not for the reason of, oh, I got it. There's shitty parents out there. But that brings me around to another one that I'll come back to here in a moment, children. But if a person is under the age of 18, if they are legally a child, they should have health care. There shouldn't be any worrying about a child being taken care of in this country. Which, now coming back to that point, while we're on social systems and children, how do we let so many children in this country get abandoned? Hundreds and thousands of children in this country just forgotten about. Now, there's people that say they're not my children, they're not my problem. And yeah, you didn't have that child, all right, it's not your problem. And in that regard, but where is your humanity? And now I'm not here to appeal to you about your humanity, but seriously. You can't look at a child and think how they are innocent in this world, how they deserve a chance at life. When you're a child, you haven't had a chance at life. You haven't even made it far enough in life to screw up. The mistakes that are often made in your life, yeah, children make their own mistakes, but the mistakes are often not their fault. Is it a child's fault that a parent doesn't have a job, whether that be they lost their job or they choose not to work? Is it a child's fault that they don't have a home or a meal? It's not a child's responsibility to provide that for themselves. And quite frankly, whether a parent's doing their job as a parent or not, that shouldn't matter. Not when it comes to children. When it comes to children, this country, whether we do anything else to take care of American citizens, we should be taking care of the children. We should be looking out for them. Health care, food, shelter, these should not be things that any child has to worry about. They're children. It's the carefree time of their life. They shouldn't be going, I'm hungry. Where am I going to get a meal? How am I going to get a meal? A child should not be worrying about that. There should be programs in place that take care of children. No matter what the circumstance with their parents, children should be taken care of. And whether you feel like it's your responsibility to take care of somebody else's children or not, doesn't matter to me. And if that loses you my vote, so be it. There are circumstances that I am 100% adamant on, and I will absolutely lose this election over if that's what it came to, because I'm not willing to submit to just whatever it is that any given person has going on in their mind, that they can look at the suffering of a child and just turn their back and say it's not their problem. And if you're one of those people that can do that can look at a situation with a child and say, it's not your problem, you need to reevaluate your life. And if saying that loses your vote too, quite frankly, I don't care. And now you're going to read into that. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't care. When I say that, it doesn't mean I don't care and I don't care at all and like, well, this guy doesn't care about us as an American people. What I mean when I say I don't care in that regard is that you're not the type of people that I want associated with me anyways. If you can look at children and just go, meh, that's not what I want my name associated with. When people hear the name Adam Patsy, I want them to see that I want to stand up for the American people, that I want to stand up for the people who do not have a voice in this country. I want to show this country what the voices that are not being heard, the ones that are being drowned out by the ever-screaming loud masses that do get taken care of. There are hundreds and thousands of people in this country that are ignored on a daily basis. I want to represent those people. I want in the future, I want in 2024, I want as president to stand up for the people that are ignored, the ones that aren't heard, the voices that go overshadowed. I want to be the president that people can look to and go, you know what? There is somebody in Washington that cares about me. Because I do care. And now that might sound strange. How do you care about strangers you've never met? How can you care about people that you know nothing about? And the fact of the matter is, it's not as hard as you might think. How do I care about people I never met? Because I can see beyond myself. I am a small portion of this country, the world, the universe, if we want to go to that extent. I am a nobody. And I'm just a small portion of the existence of humanity. And it is easy to look at that and go, how does putting myself first, how does that really benefit anybody? When I die, I'm gone. There's nothing left. But you know what? If I make the world a little bit better, and humanity continues, and the American people continue, and I've done good for them, I've done good for everybody. And that's good enough for me. So, all of that said, I want to be the president that stands up for you. I want to be the guy you can turn to and look and say, Adam Patsy cares. He might not know me on a personal level. He might not know my personal struggles and what I'm going through. But he is trying and he is fighting to do something to make my situation better. And if that's what you're looking for in a candidate, I hope between now and 2024, none of my other policies frighten you off. Because I have policies that are liberal, and I have policies that are conservative, and I have policies that run down the middle of the road. And I will get around to talking about all those. But I've gotten pretty off track here. And I promise to talk about more than just social issues, and it has been a rambling, and I apologize for that. I'm just very adamant about all of this. All that said, let's return to the social issues at hand. We talked about health care. Children, at the very least, should be provided health care. And that's up to the age of 18. Bare minimum. And then maybe we can have some kind of extension up to a certain age where it's a discounted health care. I mean, 18 is where, college starts for most. And in college, it's hard enough being a college student, let alone going to school and working and worrying about all the stuff. Yeah, you're an adult now. But it's hard making the transition from childhood to adulthood. So maybe offer a program for discounted health care for children, or young adults in college. Something to help them get on their feet so they're not just thrown to the wolves. Because this system of just throwing people to the wolves, it's failing us. This country is failing us in just throwing people out there. Especially when a lot of the stuff isn't taught in schools now. I mean, I had a program in school to learn how to write checks and stuff, but, like, okay, I learned how to write a check, but they didn't show me really beyond that how to balance my savings account and stuff. Nobody at school taught, certain things that you just encounter in life, and realistically that shouldn't come down to the schools. That should be apparent, but we're in an era where a lot of parents don't teach that stuff, and some parents never learned it themselves. So, but the point circling back on that is, we throw children into adulthood and just expect them to sink or swim, and then we don't care about them when they sink. And that's not right either. Off of the healthcare issue, food, shelter. I talked about those for children too. And in general, we have terrible programs for taking care of people in this regard. Most of the programs that are out there are private organizations that take care of that stuff. And that's great. Private organizations, if you can find one that helps, especially children in those regards, please donate to them. Do your part to help out. But I'm not here to get you on board with any charities either. I'm here to tell you about my policies. And again, when it comes to children, they shouldn't have to worry about where a meal's coming from. One of the big things I heard during the pandemic, especially in relation to New York City, was, we can't close the schools. A lot of children rely on the schools for meals. Why are these children relying on the schools for their meals? Why is it they had to go to school to get a meal? How do we not have programs set up in this country so that children have somewhere they can go to get a meal? And in my area, as a good example, during the summer, there are school lunch programs that children can go to the school and get a lunch. That's a good starting point. And yes, I realize that circles back and, well, they still had to go to the school. Not my point. It shouldn't matter where the child goes. If we can't close the schools because they need to get the meals there, why aren't there other places they can get meals? Why aren't there programs in place where a child can go when they're hungry? Or not even necessarily when they're hungry. 3 meals a day is like a base minimum. There should be somewhere 3 times a day, at bare minimum, a child can go to get food if food is not provided for them for whatever reason by their family. Shelter. Now this also. A child should not have to worry about going to bed cold and homeless and, it's storming outside, it's going to rain, and I have to sleep in that rain because I don't have somewhere to live. Never in this country should a child have to worry about shelter like that. I honestly do not care what the price tag is on some of this stuff when it comes to taking care of America's youth. We shouldn't be looking at it going, well, that's too expensive. Are you not thinking about the future? Are you so caught up in your own life and what's going on with you that you can't for a moment take and think about, what about the children? We shouldn't be looking at any of this stuff when it comes to children and going, the price is too expensive. We can't afford to do that. We in this country afford to do a lot of dumb stuff that we don't need to do. We don't need to fund certain issues. But we throw millions and trillions of dollars. Millions, billions. And yes, sometimes trillions. Pardon the slip of the tongue there earlier. But at certain things. But suddenly we don't have the money for these basic needs. Basic human needs. Certain things that people need to survive. And we can't find the budget for it. If you believe that for a moment, just stop and think about that. Think about all the money that's thrown away. And yet you believe we can't find the funding for things like feeding, healthcare, shelter for children. While we're on the subject matter of food, healthcare, shelter, and people that should be getting it, how about our veterans? this is another one that really, really bothers me about this country. How do we let veterans get treated the way they are? Now, as a personal note, I don't agree with most of the wars that America gets in. But you know what? That's not important. It doesn't matter if I agree with the war or not. That's not what's important here. If you, as a veteran, serve this country, you should be taken care of. Whether I agree with the war you fought in or not, doesn't matter. What I think about that doesn't matter. And as a note, even if I don't agree with the war, I respect the hell out of you. I respect you more than you can possibly know. I have family and friends that have served in the military. I respect them to the stars and back. And I respect every stranger in this country that is willing to go fight for my freedom, for whatever it is, for this country. I respect them. And when they come home, they shouldn't be thrown to the wolves. And I know I used that reference when it came to children becoming adults. But this is another regard where they're thrown to the wolves. They come back and they're suddenly forgotten about. There are certain programs that help, but there are not enough programs by any means. Veterans come back and they're not offered the chances they should be. They shouldn't come back and be treated as a normal civilian. Yeah, they come back and they're a civilian now. But they did something that the rest of the people that never joined the military did. They served. And they should be treated with the respect that they deserve. There should be situations and circumstances set up to take care of them. They shouldn't come back and suffer with the loneliness they feel when they get back. A lot of the men and women that serve in our military, they see things that the rest of us can't possibly imagine. And we need to remember that. And we need to show them that we care. We need programs that show them that we care. Whether it be mental health programs, whether it be shelter, food, we need to help them get back on their 2 feet here too. They need to be shown that we care, that we respect what they did, that what they did wasn't to come home and be forgotten about. Never forget about the veterans. Now, I'm sorry that this whole thing might have been a rambling mess, but this was very adamant subject matter for me. Children, veterans, we need to take care of them, as well as a number of other American citizens. But those are 2 really important ones, whether you want to accept that or not. So I hope that, if nothing else, I've given you all something to consider today, and I hope that I haven't discouraged you from trying to look into me more. And I will be back in another video to talk about subject matters that I will try and be a little less intense about. So, thank you for watching. I hope everybody had a good holiday. Please don't get offended that I didn't say a specific holiday, but let's face it, this country is full of people of many religions who celebrate many different things. So I hope every day finds you well. Thank you.